Likely our mid hero here for Lelouch. So he's going to be playing against the Leshrac that he loves to play. He should understand the matchup, though. Like, that's something that he can manage. But that's still a Bob Lesh. And out of all the heroes Bob is known for, it's the Batrider, the Leshrac, the TA. This is one of his specialties. So I'm sure he knows how to work this on the edge as well. We have to remember, we talked about this a bit last time, but the Ember changes to the Flame Guard does mean that his Flame Guard will stand a little bit longer, but he's also going to take a little bit more damage from that Lesh in the laning phase.
Oh, absolutely. I do love the IO Lesh combination here from Execration. It's just very, very strong to try and have to go against and very just fast-paced. In fact, the whole draft's very fast-paced here from Execration. You got a great pos 4 in the Tusk. The Pango obviously very aggressive early on as well, because you can just start playing once you have level 6 up. Like, you don't need to hang around and keep farming. You can just move in. And right now with the Pango build-up as well, we have been seeing Diffusal Blade being taken by Pango, and he does get some very nice value. Like, it adds a bit more damage, drains a bit of mana, obviously works with Swashbuckle as well. So you don't mind seeing the Pango Diffusal Blade being picked up, because it's so much cheaper these days, and probably won't have too bad of a value here. Like, you are still against Razor. Even against the Shaman Ogre, it could be very nice. Still, Pos 1s appear to be left for at least Execration. Polaris Esports, they may choose to run the position 1 Razor and go for something else in the offlane, or maybe they just run the offlane Razor instead, just depending on what Execration want to take for themselves. Any Pos 1s kind of speak out to you here, John, for either team?
I think on the side of Polaris, Life Sealer feels like it'd be really nice if they did run it in Pos 1 instead. You dodge out a lot of magic damage of Lush. Up against a Pango, it's still annoying, but you can rip him to shreds. Strength hero, not too hard to rip apart as the Life Sealer as the game goes on. And that takes away a lot of the damage from the Leshrac combination with the IO. I think there's still a lot of room to just run Razor Shadow Shaman in the offlane, because that is a pretty scary lane. You can just Shackles, Hex, run down with Razor, you're not going to lose a trade there on the Razor at all, no matter what. So Life Stealer could be good for Polaris. It also works for Execration, but Life Stealer against Razor it's a harder sell. You do have room for maybe Terrorblade. I see the Medusa hasn't been banned, so you can still go for Medusa up against Razor. Again, not the easiest, but you do have a lot more range, and you can always work yourself to something like the Force Staff if you really need that protection.
Well, final pick up now, Execration. I'm feeling like we might see something a bit more ranged here. Like, against the Razor, you'd rather not want something that gets too close. Drow rings a bell, though I don't think it's the pick, because you are still against Shaman and Ember. What else have we got here for Polaris? Or rather, Execration. I mean, obviously no TA available is kind of annoying. Everyone wants to just pick TA these days.
Yep. I don't know. I feel like the Deuce still fits. It's
Sure.
just that Razor is still sort of a counter to Dusa. You know, it's not the most clear cut. We've seen Dusa still do fine against Razor matchups, and you can still hold the lane pretty darn well. Stand back, play with a Mystic Snake. You're not going to be in too much trouble. But it is a risk. I think that is something that Execration might not be willing to really risk too much. Just because if they do fall behind, your Leshrac's also going to be eating up in the jungle, and that's going to be two farming cores who's going to need a lot of jungled space to kind of build up. Maybe a little bit more up-tempo could be nice. A Luna does come in line a little bit faster. I like the Drow idea you had there, Mike, as well. It doesn't take too long to kind of get going, and it's a good way of handling that Ember. Instead, they go for the Anti-Mage. Palos, this is one of his specials, and we have seen a variety of AM coming back through, Mike. Let me tell you. There's been word about AM Orchid. There's been word about AM Diffusal. The SNY Vanguard build could be back as well, but the Battlefield is still the staple. And Polaris do close out with Slaughter. So they've got the AM counter in lane, giving Palos a bit of a hard time, and you still have the Razor safe lane for Natsumi. So a little bit of a back and forth. Keen to see how much Execration can get out of this draft. With the AM up, it's really just the laning that feels hard for Palos. Like, up against a Slardar, we've seen that lane matchup before, Mike. It doesn't go smoothly for an Anti-Mage.
And can I just say, I love the fact that Diffusal Blade stacks with Anti-Mage's mana break now. All the lower MMR players that, you know, buy Diffusal Blade on AM, or all the newer players, you all had it right the first time. It was Valve and IceFrog that didn't have it right. They changed the mechanic, they altered it, and here we go. Diffusal Blade AM, suddenly a thing, and, you know, In my 15 plus years of Dota, John, I never thought I'd see the day where in the pro scene it would be normal to buy Diffusal AM, but that's where we are now. That just goes to show how old we're getting, Jonathan. Because I mean, you and I, we've probably done something stupid like that down the line, right? Like, I'm not gonna lie, when I first started, I probably did something that dumb, but turns out I was a genius all along, John.
I mean, we all did dumb stuff with lifesteal. You know, remember the time unique attack modifiers just didn't stack?
Yeah.
I think in Dota 1, I'd still build some stuff that wouldn't stack, and I'd be like, why isn't it working? Because I'm an idiot. So I want to see what Polaris does go for. I feel like this is still a really good battle for your game, but that depends on his timing. Up against the Slaughter, not the easiest time. And you do have what looks to be a dual melee lane with AM Tusk. So up against the Slaughter, he has a lot of ways of playing against that. I think overall, I like the draft of Polaris a little bit more. But Execration has a lot of surprises they can bring out, all depending on how Palace decides to play that anti-mage here, Mike.
You want to know how bad I was at Dota when we first started playing, John, back in Dota All-Stars? I know everyone brings up the whole sniper, perseverance garbage. This is how far I took it, John. My favorite hero used to be Morphling. And I used to play Morphling, and I kid you not, Jonathan, I used to play Morphling without getting the strength or Agimorph. That's how bad I was when I first started. I used to win too. That was the worst part. Even on top of that, John, this is how stupid I was. I preferred getting stats over the strength Agimorph on Morphling. Right? That happened. Now this is when I first started, mind you. I have an excuse. This is a long, long time ago, but this is how bad I was back then. I mean, Dota was a very confusing game back in the day, John. And people that say it's confusing now have no idea what it used to be like.
For sure. You can see Palace asking for a redraft because he's accusing Force of being a counter picker. And for some reason, Palace's words are gray for whatever reason. Xavius is saying, yeah, let's go ahead. Let's redraft. Of course, we're not going to do that.
Hopefully.
And he's asking now, what coffee would you like, Palace? These guys, man. You love to see the Filipino teams up against each other.
Did we get an answer?
They're even asking Tino again. They're asking Tino again, why is he playing Dota? Why isn't he playing Dawn of War instead? It's always that or Axie. Jeez, guys. You know, like, I want to bring it back to that point about Dota 1. You know what else is genius? Remember when we'd stack Wraith Fans? All the Bracers, Wraith Fans, or Null Talismans before and just keep them there 6 slot?
Of course.
That's actually a thing now. I mean, no one talks about that old Dota 1 build, but it's very relevant now.
Yeah.
But it changes to our Bracers scaling to 25 minutes. We were geniuses. Valve is just appealing to us boomers, Mike. Going back to the callback, it's a throwback.
Love you, Valve. Thanks for thinking of us. I could have used it a long time ago, but thanks for doing it. I mean, better late than never, I say. It's Execration. Well, Tino and Shank setting up here. Bob going to be around on the left track. And Polaris Esports, I mean, they've got a very strong level 1 timing on both sides, don't they, John? Like, you've got the tag team available on this task, which is always hard to go into at level 1. But then again, you've got a Razor on the other side who can get static link up and just sap away all your damage. And he might just do that right now against Tino, trying to force out the swashbuckle, and he will. Not really going to amount to too much damage being traded. In the end, it is actually going to be a 3... No, it is going to be a 2-for-2 trade on the bounties.
Yeah, even start for both sides. We're going to have to see how the lanes break out. I'm keen to see how much they get out from these lanes for Execration. It does feel like that early game is very important for them. Of course, you've got Bob on that mid, Lesh up against Lelouch on the Ember. And as we mentioned, this is one of Bob's special heroes, but it's also Lelouch's. He knows the mid matchup of Ember up against Lesh. It does feel like the Ember, again, we've seen the Flame Guard changes hurt the Ember a little bit more. Especially as the levels go up, you're just taking so much more damage from these enemy heroes. And your Flame Guard still melts the Lesh anyway. It does take maybe 2 spell casts, but you're not going to have that wave clear on the Ember. I think Bob should be able to work this lane. A lot of pressure on Lelouch to look for some dodges down the line as well with a Sleight of Fist. Easier said than done when you're your melee hero up against a Lesh.
Yeah, that's certainly true, John. Because up at the top lane as well, you've got Natsumi there on that Pos 1 Razor against Tina on the position 3 Pango, and now Mavis on the Pos 5 Ogre going to get involved. And you're also going to have naturally Shanks on that Pos 4 Io, making sure Tino does remain healthy here in this off lane. Of course, Tino coming in from Boom Esports, joining Execration, just fantastic player back into the off lane, and
Mavis, he's blocked. He's blocked mid creep. He was just standing there waiting for a tree cut. He didn't want these to tango.
Or bot lane. Vincenzo, he's going to be fine. Palos just protecting his Tusk. I suppose while we're here, John, we'll talk about this bot lane, where you've got Xavius enforced against Palos, and of course Vincenzo, or rather Vincenzo. Talk me up at this lane, John. I mean, Slada is a direct counter towards Anti-Mage. How heavily do you think it's in favor of Polaris?
I think it's pretty in favor of Polaris. They don't care about getting mana bird on Force. You know, once he's out of mana, he can just play with a Bash of Deep. You lose out in the Slithering Crush, doesn't matter. The issue here for the Tusk is that you normally want to be really aggressive with Tusk. You want to play with a tag team. You can try to be aggressive on the AM, but up against all the hold that Polaris has, it's going to be really easy to cut that off with a threat of a Hex, with a threat of the Shackles down the line, and of course the Bashes from Force. So you really just want to lock in that farm for Palos, and we know Palos can get that done quick. It's a slower laning start for him though, not what you want to see. And when you see a Tusk play a little bit more passive, it always feels bad because you want to be aggressive in him.
Palos copying a lot of damage there, and I do agree with you, John. As a person who likes to play aggressively and roam a lot, it is going to be a sad game for this Tusk, at least for now. It's that point of the game where you look at your POS 1 and you ask yourself why they chose Anti-Mage when you chose Tusk first pick. If it was a pub game, that is. Happens a lot, by the way, John, let me tell you.
I can tell you've had some great experiences in your pubs, Mike. Still,
I have, John.
Yeah. Palos not off the great start. We'll have to see how much you can get out the top lane, which we didn't really get to mention much. It does feel pretty good for Natsumi. Tino always has to swash to get out, but you can't really stop the Razor from farming. Mavis just using his body forward, being that cutoff point. They can't really lock in a kill unless they jump Shanks because of all the regen on hand, but you have to respect the damage output of that plasma field for that little Io. It does melt pretty fast.
Well, they certainly aren't making it very easy here for Tino or Shanks. So much damage potential here from Natsumi and Mavis, just even with the plasma field. I appreciate that Natsumi doesn't bother going for the level 2 static link at the level 3 mark, but rather just going for the plasma field instead. So it just does so much damage on the outer edges, and it's very easy to catch the Io with the maximum damage plasma field as well from Natsumi, because he's naturally just going to be away from Tino. So I appreciate the skill build up here from our Razor. So props to Execration, John. They are still making this offlane work, considering they are in a pretty upsetting kind of matchup.
Yeah, it's still not too bad for Tino. They do have the overcharge up on Shanks, so there's a lot more damage with the shield crash and swash when you do want to come in. Mavis is, again, just putting his body forward, taking the heat off from Natsumi for the most part.
Mid lane, Lelouch has done a really fantastic job here on the Ember, John. Bob is keeping up with 3 CS behind the Ember, but well, Lelouch not really too affected by this kind of matchup here against the Leshrac. And well, you did say he knew exactly what he was doing, is now top lane Mavis going to try and move in on the Io, as he was being jumped by Tino and Shanks, but does manage to make it out with the thanks of his carry. The bot lane is where First Blood does occur. Force and Xavius able to pick off Vincenzo, and as an AM, Palos just cannot help out.
No, it's like you said, Mike. Yeah, you have the support. Tusk, you want to be aggressive. AM doesn't really contribute for you. Palos is already dropping low. Does have the gold for the Ring of Health, so he has a little bit more sustain in the lane, but this lane just doesn't get any easier. Force has the level 2 bash up, doesn't care when he's empty mana. When he does have the mana for Slithering Crush, he'll just throw it out, and you've got the threat of the Shackles ready on Xavier. So a lot of aggression can line up there. Some movement onto mid though, maybe looking for a play onto Lelouch.
Yeah, they're going to try. Lelouch, still not level 6, but I don't think he's in too much danger either. So maybe you can land a nice shards into a stun. Perhaps you could try to dive, but there's the scan out from Lelouch. Understanding they are nearby. Meanwhile, bottom, or rather top lane, Natsumi going in onto Shanks and might just have this kill for himself as he needs one more hit, but no. The slow is there from Tino with the shield crash, and they'll try to get some damage out onto the Pango, but Tino is going to be able to swashbuckle away in the end. Seems like Shanks will be able to reset as well with his own Tango. And in the meantime, mid lane, Bob and Lelouch both dropping Xavius now. Gonna try and go for a chase onto Vincenzo. Had the Ether Shock, but wasn't confident in the damage output. It does seem like we had a kill onto the Ember before we ended up seeing the Leshrac go down.
Yeah, and that's a very important take for Execration. They spent a lot of time on mid. They even managed to secure the DD away from Xavier, so a little bit more output from Vincenzo if he does see the opportunity to play. And that allows Bob to rotate bot as well.
Of course, could be in trouble now as Bob, with a great rotation, is going to punish this Slaughter. Going to make life a little bit easier for Palos on this AM, as he's just not really had a break. Meanwhile, top lane, Natsumi's in trouble now. Chase is on here with Shanks. They might just have enough. One more hit would have done it. And Natsumi barely able to get out with his life intact, but a very rough time thus far for Polaris. There's even bot lane, a bit of a dive coming out onto Xavius, and Execration are not slowing down. With the backup of a Bob, they feel a lot more confident to be able to dive these towers. And they're onto that bottom tier 1 now.
They're just playing around this spike from Bob. They know his damage output's really good. They can just melt towers, they can back up the AM, relieve that pressure on the lane. That is giving a lot of free room for Lelouch mid. And that's the worrying part. Sure, you managed to get that kill early on, but Lelouch was controlling that lane really well. He's not suffering too much as a result. They will try to make a play now, though.
They'll try, but Lelouch now is level 6, and Bob may be the one to get jumped, as Snowball is there, back in on Mavis. In fact, never mind, Bob, he's fine. Shard's even almost catching Xavius, but not quite. Execration very quick with the rotations here from the support duo to make sure this Leshrac does remain alive, and, well, Bob kind of just uncontested now on the Lesh.
He's managed to really recover from those rotations out. Number 1 in net worth now. Even finds a nice regen rune for himself. And that should allow him to play a lot more aggressive, look for a reset, go back in, look for a tower push perhaps. I think that's the one thing we need to see from Execration. With the Leshrac up, you do want to melt these objectives a little bit faster. Because while it's up, even though Execration's having a rougher time, they're not losing as much as you'd expect them to.
Natsumi trying to go back in on Tino now, but again Shanks is going to be around that IO to make sure the Pango does have a chance at survivals. Now the salve is out, though in the meantime they actually found Palos. Xavius able to take the kill on the Shadow Shaman. Of course, Force was there to help out, but that's a pretty big pick off to find here from Polaris.
They're really slowing down Palos' game. Like, without Lelouch around to threaten, it's still a Slaughter lane. It's still a Slaughter with a Shadow Shaman, lots of hold for the AM. Execration will try to make a smoke play up top to slow down Natsumi. Natsumi is backing off at the right time. I don't believe that was spotted by Ward, so they should have an angle here if they still want to force this.
Yeah. Mavis, Natsumi looking to move in. TP rotation is out from Lelouch, though there is 4 heroes around here from Execration, but Polaris, they didn't know about it. Natsumi's been focused down. Snowball is there with the tag team. Natsumi still trying to survive, but cannot do it. Bob in the meantime, he'll just man fight against the rest, though. A nice shackles out, but it's going to mean nothing. With Shanks around to keep healing up Bob, they just can't take him down, and now it's going to be a bit of a wipeout here for Execration, as they'll find a triple kill onto Tino. And they are really playing this map very well here, Execration. And Polaris, they can't catch a break yet, John.
No. A really great smoke out. They found the angle to the backline, swing things around as Polaris was committing for the mid. Now they've got the relocate ready if they need it.
They want to go mid? No, never mind. They'll go down bot with their C-Force, and they'll get a bit of sweet revenge here for their AM, as Bob, he will take his 4th kill of the game now on the Leshrac. Just be sent back up top here with Shanks. Able to keep going, but John, as you can see, this IO is just allowing a bit too much from Execration, I think. Just feels like there's nothing to fear with Shanks around.
They don't have the burst on Polaris to immediately take care of that IO problem. And you don't have something like Alina, you don't have a Lion with Finger. You just keep it pinned, take it out of the fight early on. And I think that a lot of that is going to have to come out from Lelouch at some point. You know, his right-click damage can scale. That will feel really strong when Force is around with a Corrosive Haze as well. But we're ways off from Force being battle-ready. He's still waiting for that blink up on the Slaughter. He is number 2 in net worth. I don't think the Slaughter is really the hero you want as number 2, though. You'd really want more onto Lelouch, more onto Natsumi, but all of that pressure coming out from Execration, really mainly from Bob, has slowed down Polaris enough to make it a tough game to start running around here. They do have the wards ready on Xavius. They could look for a tower push elsewhere as they take the bot tier 1. Could line up for a mid push, but the side of Polaris just doesn't feel like they're not sticking together as much, and they are still trying to farm, but they have to watch themselves because Execration's approaching that early spike you can get with the IO lineup.
T1 mid tower still dropping though. Mavis is trying to keep it alive. Vincenzo going to move in now with Shanks, and they even tether the damn siege creep. Overpowered, everything being thrown out to make sure the siege creep can finish off this tier 1, and it gets it. They can't even get the deny off here for the dire end. Execration just getting everything they can ask for thus far. Hell, you look back at this Razor, John, he hasn't even got the Falcon Blade up. Like, it's such a detrimental situation for this dire team. And you're still against an anti-mage who's going for a Battle Fury. Like, once he's got that up, it just feels impossible.
He's going to outfarm you. Great scan to spot out the smoke from Polaris. They did get the scan off onto Bob. Might be able to find a nice support kill, but even that slips by. Senso, though.
They might be able to get the Tusk. The IO is around to save, and the Snowball is going to fly out, and now the rotations come in. Vincenzo, he's bought some time, so Bob, he can get the Split Earth off. Lelouch needs to back out, though. Force is going to move in. Back on the Leshrac. Bob may have gone too far. Shanks trying to save him, but he can't do it. They do lose Xavius, and they do end up losing the Slanna, but it'll be a 2-for-2 trade thus far as Mavis. He might be the third to go down here as Tino's not done yet, with the Diffusal Blade finding another. Tino, he might have to leave Lelouch though. But considering the state of the game, you'd have to argue Polaris will be pretty happy with that exchange.
They find a big kill, sacrificing quite a few heroes, but you don't mind that too much. I still feel like Execration wins out though, Mike, because Paulus is still free farming bot. They're pressuring Lesh, but he's doing his job, taking the attention away from the AM, allowing that Battle Fury build up. All of the course of Execration now in the top 3, not one of Polaris breaching that. And that's a worrying sign. Polaris' lineup is much more tempo-based. They will go for another smoke play right after. They need to find some bigger targets, and they can't afford to get any trades. They have to win outright.
Big line drawn out. Vincenzo, though, going to break the smoke and a straight snowball in. No hesitation, as Bob's going to move in as well. Vincenzo may die before they can actually get this fight started, and now Bob, he's been trapped up. Shackles are there with the shards out, and they've got him. Shanks. Oh, he had the tether on the Pangos, so he couldn't really help Bob out there, and well, they've lost 2 now as they're going to get the chains out on the IO into the Slitherine Crush. But Shanks is still trying to make his way out, and Tino will even pop the Rolling Thunder to try and punish Force for this, and does actually get the kill. Well, if anything, John, Tino's been doing a fantastic job on this Pango. 6-0-3 so far.
And, you know, we talked about this when Tino went into Boom. We mentioned that he was actually having a great time as off lane for Execration back then as well. And it's showing. Like, his playstyle on the 1 for Boom was definitely much more of a tempo setter. And now, fully into the off lane role, he's just doing a lot of work for the team. Buying that space, finding the counter fights they need, getting that quick build up with a diffusal, and he's just all over the map. This is so much space out for Palos. Your AM does have the Battle Fury up, Mike. Things are just going to get rougher and rougher for Polaris unless they start finding some bigger wins. But they've never been able to pin down Palos. They just haven't had the angle here.
They have not. Immediate smoke up. Vincenzo in the right spot to break the smoke immediately, and you might find a Tusk kill. It's just not going to feel very worthwhile now for Polaris. It's a 5-man smoke for a pos 5. Just not the way you want to go about it. They need much bigger targets than that.
Definitely. And yeah, that's what? The third smoke in a row from Polaris? They're going to be out of that resource for quite some time. Now they're going to have to play a bit more passively. They didn't find the big enough kills in the time they had their smokes up. So I think Execration, realizing that those were like 3 back-to-back smokes, are in a very safe spot. They can just keep farming up in Palos. They can just tether him up, ensure the AM gets what it needs to be online. On the bright side here for Polaris, they do have the Midas up on Natsumi, so he can start scaling. He can start playing the long game a bit, get his EXP up, work towards the BKB down the line, work towards the refresh, as we tend to see Razors go, and try to play the long game. The itemization here from Lelouch as well is geared towards that longer game. Like, he's going for the physical Ember that we have seen popping up. Desolator going to be coming through from them, and they can still apply some tower pressure with Xavius up. So they have at least a little bit of a push going on that mid-tier 1.
Oh, nice stun out. They want to try and bait this Pango in, but a nice snowball is going to save here from Vincenzo as he turns back around with the shards out. Trying to go for a Walrus Punch in, and it's actually going to be Polaris that lose somebody. Force does get caught out, and so does Xavius. Well, they just saved the day there for Tino, and it just feels like this Pango is not killable right now. Like, it's either the tether from the IO, or it's either a snowball save. But both the support duo of Execration, they're just doing a brilliant job.
And they just have so many ways of breaking off the aggression from Polaris. They do spot Palos. He's got a blink. They don't have the hex targets around him. It's really just Mavis playing tag, zoning them away from Natsumi. Roshan's open now as well. It is just Tino and Shanks, but look at the damage output of just a Pangolier with overcharge. Quarter HP of Roshan. It's like, that's one hero with an IO. Now with Bob, it's not going to take too long at all.
Damage as well, John. Hold it, don't,
of course.
Double damage is, I mean, I guess that is standard though, considering, we see double damage every time a Roshan's happening now, so I forgive you for not bringing it up, John. As Bob does take the Aegis there on the left track, and what's still a 5k net worth advantage. And John, about a minute or two ago, you were pointing out the Midas of Natsumi, but at the same time, Palos had a Battle Fury up. And I don't think the Midas is going to be able to be anywhere near keeping up to Palos now.
I don't think there's any other way to keep up with Palos. Like, Razor just doesn't want to farm up too much, but he can't take fights right now without Natsumi's BKB. So the Midas is like a stopgap measure to ensure they're not bleeding out as much gold. Natsumi's still pretty far behind, just from the state of the game. Execration's just won out too many fights. All you can hope for now is that as you stall out for your Razor, your Ember also starts to build up. Desolator, BKB, maybe even the Daedalus down the line for Lelouch is really going to help the cause. That is a lot more farm, and the map is shrinking for the side of Polaris, so that farm is getting harder to find, Airman.
That it is, John. I mean, it kind of feels like you're just relying on Lelouch now to try and get to that late game timing, and you already see the Desolator being picked up. It's still going to take a bit of time though, and again, into an anti-mage, it can be very rough to try and actually get enough damage out. I mean, hell, let alone the Pango. Tino's just been such a menace this game. Still yet to die once, and you had success in Boom Esports and now Execration. I mean, Tino's just looking great as this past 3. See who does find the first kill on this Pango. I've got to tell you, John, it doesn't seem like it's coming anytime soon.
No, it's just such a big lack of burst on the side of Polaris. They win out in very sustained fights, but as we've seen, Execration just has so many saves. They've got a lot of sustain from the IO that it doesn't feel like you get the fights lasting long enough to really deal your full complement of damage out onto the side of Execration. So we'll see when Polaris does find that opening. I think the BKB from Natsumi could be the starting point of that. The BKB on Lelouch as well. Again, still a ways off from the gold, and just look at the position of Execration. They've got really aggressive jungle wards, just not making it easy for Polaris to find that farm.
Yeah. Vincenzo, shards, not on the mark. Natsumi runs towards the left. The snowball is there. Back in onto the Ogre is Bob now in trouble, but never mind. He's fine. He's got the Aegis up. So they need to go through the first line first, but that's just going to give a reset over to Bob. He just keeps going. Xavius, he's about to melt here to the pulse, but no damage and almost dies. As Xavius barely gets away, but I cannot say the same for Natsumi. And now the shards connect on the Shaman. Oh, they get him in the end. Bob somehow not losing the Aegis either. As Tino just going to keep going on to Lelouch. Does barely miss out on that swashbuckle. But now they just go top tier 2. Palos has been free farming this whole time. And they'll just have a dance just while waiting for this glyph. Why the hell not?
Bit of a jig there coming out from Bob. Tier 2 faults. They can take Outpost now. And now the top jungle is completely unplayable for Polaris. They've not been able to secure the farm in those camps. Execration's done a great job of just constantly applying pressure. They haven't been able to swing around bot here for Polaris to find farm. Their triangle isn't really stacked up. They haven't had the time to build up. And that 8k lead on Execration is just so hard to play against when you've got Ember, Slardar, and Razor all really early to mid game heroes that need that tempo. And scaling is there, but we're talking about like maybe 14 minutes into this game. Very far off from that point where you can start scraping by even with a disparity as long as certain items are up. We're nowhere near those items yet, Mike.
That we are not, John. Lelouch mid lane trying to force Bob back a little bit, but pings are out onto Xavius and they see him. That Shaman, not going to be very long for this world unless he does blink away in time. Tino could not get the shield crash off quick enough. Rather, Xavius just a bit too quick on the fingers there with the blink. He's going to buy himself another moment. Can't say the same for Force though. He's going to try and hide in the tree line and no, never mind, they won't see him. Force is going to be just fine to TP away, but the bottom tier 1 tower can't do that. It's still going to be an 8k net worth lead here for Execration. And hell, with the way they're going, John, they still have 40 more seconds on the Aegis. They might have time for another tower.
It's just a really fast push out from Bob. I don't blame them for playing on the edge. And they might even be able to find a kill if they find a good angle. Kai Sanch up on Bob. Even more output. A little bit of stat resistance coming in for Lesh. Harder to pin down. With that lack of burst damage, even now with this lack of control, it's going to be a big factor in trying to find Bob in any of his lives. He is just running forward. Look at the confidence. He's just running into that jungle. They lost vision. He just knows he can't die to the sports.
Oh, Mavis. Used up. Hex is there though. Xavius saving the day now with the shackles. Have they gone too far? Relocate? Gonna be cancelled off here by Shanks, though Bob is still gonna find the kill he came for. Shanks, though, in big trouble and is gonna drop. A 1-for-1 here as Mavis is gonna go down to never mind. And somewhere across the map, they actually ended up losing Lelouch at the same time. So 3-for-1 is the trade for Execration, and they are not slowing down anytime soon.
They understand this is a really strong moment for them. They're very far ahead. Their AM is free farming. We do have the Diffusal AM as well, Mike. Palas has us up after that Manta. So there you go. All the mana burn in the world up against an Ember. It's not going to feel great when he's on top. Even the Razor is going to need some mana to play with here to get the stat blink, to get the Eye of the Storm and Plasma Field constantly spammed out. If Palas just jumps on top of you with Tino with a swash, you're not going to have much mana to play with, Mike. You just can't use any of the spells you need to really get a grip here.
Vincenzo may get caught. Force is there with the initiation, though. This task is actually quite tanky for a pos 5. They do hold him down long enough, though Vincenzo is going to get a snowball off and just buy a bit more time. And that's when you know things are getting a little bit concerning. That took a very long time, Jonathan. And that was without the Tusk doing anything.
Yep. It's just not enough damage. You've got the Deso up on the Lelouch, nothing else. Still working towards that BKB. Smoke play, though. Catch Shanks.
That's a nice pick off. Shanks will be the second support to drop here from Execration, and Polaris, when you add both supports up like that, it does get a lot sweeter. Still not the big core pick-off they probably were hoping for, but it's definitely something. And now you've got a 35-second window without this IO being alive. It's a matter of whether they can actually find someone else from Polaris to try and aim down.
They just don't have the forward vision to get that done. You can't really keep the hunt up. You know the bot lane's being occupied. They don't really push into mid all too well. And they don't have the Shaman wards up yet, so they're forced to back off. Play it safe. Next Rosh in about 50 seconds, we'll find out how long that respawn is. I think Polaris can set their eyes there. They do have some decent AoE control. Have to be wary of Tino. It's a good roll in that location, can ruin that fight. Palace does have a DD running as well, so he's just looking for someone to overextend and farm. Could maybe make a play towards Force if they want it.
Thunder is there. Force immediately stunned up, and Palos, he'll jump in with the double damage. Bye-bye, Force. Meanwhile, mid lane, look at this, John. Vincenzo looking for a snowball in, or rather just a shards. They're going to spawn out Mavis, and they'll just rush him. Chains are going to be there, though, to hold back Bob. But they're going high ground. I mean, there's just nothing to stop them. It's a 4v5 scenario, and Vincenzo, he's already in. He may have gone too far, but with the shards block, he's going to be fine. In the meantime, Palos is going to take down Xavius, and he's onto Lelouch now. Lelouch might fight Shanks on that IO, but he may lose his own life in the process. He cannot get any mana to just remnant away, but he gets 4-staffed out. Barely surviving is the Ember. And it seems like it's going to be enough for Execration to back themselves out and look for a reset.
They don't really lose anything of value there on that siege. Don't manage to make too much progress on the high ground, but they force out the wards. I think just having that big ult out from the Shaman used on a fight that you don't really lose much for opens up the high ground even more. Because you can swing by a tower, you know there's no wards to worry about, you know that's a lot of the damage that Polaris wants to play with because they're lacking it on their heroes. Gives an opportunity. Rosh only a minute off as well. That could be where Execration sets their eyes on next. And man, it's so tough for the side of Polaris because we talked about it. The mana burn from Palos is just too much. He takes away all of your mana in what, 2-3 hits? What do you do afterwards? What do you do as an Ember? What do you do as a Razor or even the Slardar if you can't get off the Corrosive Haze, if you can't get off the Slitherine Crush to hold up the clump up? You're in a very tough spot now for Polaris. And that lead has kind of stagnated. It is stuck at around 11k, so that does mean Polaris is maintaining the status quo, not dropping anymore. It's still a massive lead that none of their heroes are ready to close the gap on yet. Natsumi working towards that refresh. Maybe that's the point you feel better with a refresh BKB.
Oh, that going high ground like that's very, very risky for Polaris Esports, and luckily for them, they back off in time. Roshan is up now for either side to try and start, and it looks like Polaris are going to be in position to go for it first if they really want. Problem is they'll have nowhere near enough damage to get it done quick enough before Execration do react. Execration looking down that bot lane instead, wanting to go back after that tier 3 tower. Polaris, it just seems like they're going to try and avoid giving any form of an opening here to Execration. It's pretty much the best they can do while waiting for Lelouch to get to a point where he can just start spamming Sleight of Fist and kind of hoping for the best. At least have his BKB up before he can get going again. And they're actually going to try for Roshan. Oh, they know Execration. They've scanned this out. They know exactly where they are. Shards are there. Force is going to make the jump in, but Tino, he's already got a great Rolling Thunder going. He's caught the Shaman to the backside. Meanwhile, Bob is not dying. This IO heal is way too high as they put the wards down, but they mean nothing. Meanwhile, Palos going to keep rushing here for Xavius and the Razor, taking down both thanks to Tino. And it's going to be another, it seems like, his Force. Well, he's barely able to run his way out with the sprint. Though I can't say the same for Lelouch. He's just constantly out of mana. And in the meantime, Palos does end up finding Force. They can't take a fight, John.
No. They just don't have the burst. Like, there's so much sustain, so much saves. It's the same issue that we've seen Polaris have up against Execration's lineup for almost like the past 10 minutes. There's just a severe lack of damage. They wanted to come out with very strong lanes with Razor and Ogre Magi, with the Shadow Shaman and the Slardar counter into the AM, but they didn't manage to get that running start they need. Now, you don't need Roche. You could just melt the high ground. It doesn't take too long for an AM to get the work done. They know there's no threat of wards as well from Xavier, so the defense, again, is going to be a bit middling here from the side of Polaris. Not going to overstay their welcome. Execration could just play for the Roshan now. It's going to be a very safe play. And for Polaris, it goes back to what you said. You're waiting for Lelouch maybe to just take over that damage-dealing role. For the right-click Ember, that's going to be level 20 with a Sleight of Fist damage, and level 25 with a double charge on Sleight of Fist. It's such a long time wait for those level spikes to come in for Lelouch.
A big smoke up here from Polaris Esports, but it's not going to amount to much, and I think Execration will be more than happy to go for this fight as Tino might break the smoke in time and does see Xavius, and he's going to go for the chase. Palos, he'll blink right in. He could not give a crap. Mavis gets slowed up. The Purge is there. Rolling Thunder will begin. They'll go after the backlines. They'll find Lelouch immediately. They'll get the BKB off in time in December. He just needs to get out. Remnant away. He might make it, though. Tino is not giving up on this chase. He wants this kill so bad. And now Bob finds a Split Earth. Oh my, Bob. Great blink Split Earth out. Palos, I mean, he's getting hit, but it means nothing. It means nothing, Jonathan. They are just fountain farming them right now. Natsumi's jumped out. Palos, he's going to blink away as he was getting quite low. Meanwhile, Bob is still trapped up in the wards, trying to get himself out, but does finally drop. Still a bit of a mess here from Polaris Esports, but I guess at least they get themselves a Leshrac kill.
They find something, and that is a pretty hefty kill. The side of Execration maybe diving a bit too far forward. They weren't taking any objectives while that fight was breaking out, so they don't manage to take any more off the map from the side of Polaris than they'd want to. They are finding some good punishment. And Polaris now just needs to keep trying to hold on to that. But the network lead keeps growing here for Execration. Like 21k up, 30 to 14. And I still see no answers for Palos. He finds another double damage. He could be ready to go if he wanted to risk it. We'll probably just wait for the Leshrac Bob to be back up. Side of Polaris, I mean, they're in this situation where they can't really pop outside. They could try it for another smoke play down the line when they have one. They've got to find a way to lock in Palos. I think if you can take care of the AM with your BKBs up, the Leshrac feels less of a threat. But it's just that Palos is playing so well. He's not giving any of those openings. He's not showing himself on the map. just such a well-protected aim right now.
Polaris gonna re-invade that triangle, but we'll be able to get away with it. At least a few wards out. Palos still happy to keep his own farm going. Is it just buy out a Hyperstone? Maybe just an AC to come out, and yeah, it will be. Nice AC there for Palos and the rest of the team. Gonna make life even harder now for Polaris. Even with this Deso up on Lelouch, it kind of just negates all the minus armor that you are pumping out as this Ember.
Jeez.
Lelouch.
Nana just melts. 2 hits.
Let's do that a Basher. In fact, never mind the Basher. Bob's in again. Lelouch forced the BKB up. Meanwhile, Mavis just getting blown up by the Mana Void of Palos. And Natsumi, well, he'll have the double ulti out, but is it really going to be enough? They'll try to focus down Bob. In fact, never mind Bob, you'll go after Shanks, but you've caught out the Razor. Natsumi just trapped between a rock and a hard place, and that's going to be them just melting. Buyback is there, at least from Force. It just doesn't seem like it matters. They are just getting destroyed here. Bob's got a triple kill on the Lesh. Lelouch being slowed up, and there's the GG call. Ultra kill for Bob. Can we get this man a rampage? It looks like we probably could try. His Force is melting, and Palos, he will take the kill away. Bob will give the tip over. Full team wipe is there anyway, and that'll be game number 1 going the way of Execration.
A strong performance coming out from Execration. It's been a bit up and down for them, in phase 2 in the group stage. They were running with a very different roster. They've had a lot of players shift out. This is their final form, and this is a very scary team on Execration. Polaris, they're known for playing fast. They're known for being the aggressors. We didn't see that this game. They had a lineup that comes online very quick as well. You go for this Detsu build-up on Lelouch, and Execration just showing us, you can't underestimate them at all. Bob managing to pop off, becoming the wrecker this game. And once more, going back to Tino, he actually was playing offlane before going on to Boom, back on the pause 1, and now he's back in the offlane. He's just looking amazing. This is the exact same form I remember from Tino before he went into the Boom. He had a perfect game, 9-0-13. Execration's just tying things together, and for Polaris, they've got to play a lot faster. I think they've got to be aware of some of those secret picks like the Polaris AM. Sure, they had the Slaughdar. It didn't come out the way they wanted to, and I think they just couldn't play as fast as Execration did, lacking burst against that IO save.
I mean, the minus armor as well, right? Like with the Pango and the AM and both had diffusal blades. It's, man, that mana was running out real darn quick, especially for poor old Lelouch. But, well, John, we are going to head to a short 10-minute break, of course. And once we are back, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to have game number 2 between Execration and Polaris Esports.